very much for your patience. Sorry about tech runs, and you know what they're like, it always overruns. I'm going to have to ask you to wait for a little bit longer because I've lost the main man, Mohammed, who's going to be doing the... Oh, hello. He was out there. He's coming. Yes, go ahead. See more technical bits. It's all right, I have to run up there in a minute. Let me get the lights and stuff going. That's all right. Take a seat. No worries. Yeah, thank you very much. Welcome to Knowing Another Through Philosophy, and the project's called Breaking Down Images. I'll shut up, I'll go upstairs and I'm going to let Mohammed explain. Enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Would you like to come in?
Never mind, we can hear you.
Can't see you.
Need to see me.
You've got to wait for the moment.
That's the thing.
Start. Hello? Yeah, this is working. Hello, good evening, and thank you for
Hold on,
coming.
sorry. Lights. Where's the lights?
It's part of the
Never mind, you just keep talking, we'll listen.
Can you put him down at the back here?
to entertain you today.
Hold on. Take your pick.
And at the back as well, the audience.
Good evening. Thank you for coming to this event tonight. My name is Mohammed Ahmedullah. I'm from Richland Circle, and this event tonight is the culmination of some work that we've been doing for about a year. And we got funding from the National Lottery what's it called? National Lottery Community Fund. Yeah. To run a project called Knowing One Another Through Philosophy. This is the third project, right, of our thing, Knowing One Another. First one was about when we got people from different communities, and they looked into each other's background, where they come from, and they did research and talked among themselves, and they wrote a little book. And we had a very big project celebration at the Rich Mix Center, where they presented their findings and they talked about their experience. It's kind of a way of getting to know one another. We live in a diverse society. It's becoming more and more diverse. And we have to keep on doing things which will improve communication between people. Otherwise, people start becoming separate. A lot of people are doing a lot of things, and we came up with this idea. Second one, we did Knowing One Another. It was through drama. So we utilized drama. We got people from the community, and then we looked at multiculturalism, multi-generational, and multi-roots into this country, and multi-faith. This lovely lady here, Joan, yeah, she did a drama, Knowing One Another with us, performed here several years ago. It's on the YouTube. She acted as well, so you can see her acting. And after that, well, we had some feedback from people, and people wanted to, some of the themes that we explored. I thought, how can you explore them at a deeper level, a bit more substantial? So we came up with this idea of knowing one another through philosophy. Some people freaked out, when we came up with this project idea. What's this? But the idea was, to kind of, there's a lot of prejudice, a lot of misunderstanding, and sometimes people don't know, how to think, logically, and how to challenge each other, using the right kind of arguments, right? So we came up with this, and as part of this project, we ran a course, a philosophy course, covering logic, epistemology, political philosophy, moral philosophy, and so on. And after that, people who joined us, they had to find some problems, in the community, some issues that create tension. But we wanted people to look, beyond the main community, because mostly at the moment, people, when we talk about community cohesion, people talk about ADL and Muslims, right? But they're a small community. They're also facing prejudice in different ways, localized, and they don't get to, they don't get to explore or they don't get the attention, right? So we wanted people to look, find issues that they experience or their friends, and just explore them, philosophically, critically, and then try and get to the bottom of where these problems are coming from. So originally, the participants, they were supposed to, make presentations to you tonight to tell you what they have explored, and then, setting out the arguments and solutions to some of the problems that different community faces. But while we were doing this project, some people said, "Excuse me, can I do a script?" I said, "What?" Right? Then, when you bring people from different backgrounds, right, they come with their own ideas, right? So then it kind of evolved to this. We didn't have much time and resources to do this performance as the way that we would have liked to, but you will see that still we have done quite a good job, and hopefully we will take this kind of work forward, and you will all join us again in the future. Thank you.
Excuse me. Sorry to disturb you. I was just wondering, is that the Quran you're reading?
No. Why are you asking?
Oh, I'm just a little curious, actually. I'm a journalist, you see, and I'm looking into community cohesion and interfaith in Britain, post 7/7 London bombings.
Ah, yes. Very good. But bombing is very bad.
Oh, yeah, yes, you're right. Can I ask you how you feel wearing the hijab out in the streets? I mean, are you confident about it, or do you feel scared given the current context? I mean, do you get any kind of problems from people?
Yes. I get problems. Sometimes people swear at me. And they tell me to go back to my country.
Oh, really? Idiots. Sorry to hear that. So, do you always carry the Quran with you everywhere?
Yes. I carry the Quran because it's a small book, so I carry it. But this one, not the Quran. I'm reading Rumi poem. You listen, and I will read. In the Garden of Eden, love, you cannot relax. Even for a moment, you will...
Excuse me? Can you stop singing in Arabic?
Sorry?
I said, can you stop singing in Arabic? Read your Quran in a mosque.
Huh? For your information, sister, this is not the Quran. I read in Rumi poems. What you reading? The Bible? Huh? You read your Bible. And not speak to me, please.
Look, I don't care what it is. Speak in English, not in Arabic. And for your information, this isn't a Bible. It's a diary.
Ah, so you read.
This diary belongs to my dad. See, that's the problem with you immigrants. You feel all white people are Christians, eat pork, and drink alcohol. Well, I eat pork, and certainly drink, but I'm Christian, yeah? So you adopt some British values, or go back to where you came from.
Hey, young lady, quiet enough. Stop being so rude. I'm British, and I was born here. Look, do you know what? I'm disgusted in your behaviour. Now, I think you owe a sincere apology, don't you?
Oh, be quiet! None of you know what I've been through. My leg. My leg.
Serves her right.
Someone help, please!
Allah!
Don't touch me! I'm fine.
It's okay, it's okay. Look, I'm a doctor. I think you may have sprained your ankle. It just feels swollen. And you look like you're in a bit of a shock too. I need you to concentrate on your breathing, okay? Breathe. Good. Now relax your legs.
Look, sorry, Doc. I was rude. I'm sorry.
Don't worry, just forget it. Concentrate on your breathing, okay?
No, listen, but I am. I'm sorry. I said some horrible stuff. Said some awful stuff about Muslims. I'm sorry. I wasn't like that. I wasn't like that. I quit my law degree. I signed to EDL since
Since your father died in the 7/7 bombing? Look, I'm very sorry, sister. But I'm sure your father is now in a better place. And he would not want you to hate others, would he?
She's right.
You see, those people who committed these bombings, they were wrong, and it was sinful. You know, in the Quran, God says, for everyone who saves one person's life, it is as though he has saved the entire humanity.
Look, I know you're extremely upset by your father, and rightly so. But like the lady said, Muslims believe killing one person is like killing the whole of humanity. And those who did the bombings were misguided. Look, I don't like to talk about this, but my father was a victim of hate crime too. And the perpetrators were members of the BNP. And my brother was killed in Afghanistan, only 29 years old, and left behind his wife and 2 young children. As a result of all of this, I decided to quit the military and become a doctor instead, so I can save lives and not take them. Look, at the end of the day, do we hate each other because we are conditioned to hate the other by the media and the politicians or whoever else? Or are we consciously choosing to act this way? If it's the former, then it's external and we have the power to reject it. And if it's the latter, then it's internal and we have the power to control and change that too.
What's the matter?
Mum does my head in.
Now what?
She's going on about moving away from the UK again.
That old chestnut.
This is my home. I was born here. I've lived here for half a blooming decade. I don't have no history and memories of another home. Why can't she just understand that?
Yeah, but it's not about the geography, Mum, is it? Or location. It's about, you know, like ethnicity and, I don't know, maybe like a national identity.
I know my blooming identity. Just because I'm British doesn't mean I don't know my Turkish identity or my Turkish Cypriot identity. I practice my religion, I speak the language, I follow the traditions, the celebrations and all that. I belong to the Turkish Cypriot community. Why should I have to move away from all I know just to reiterate that? That makes sense to me.
Well, but Mum wants to project her own sense of self, you know, her own self-knowledge onto us.
She's still living in the past, that's what she's doing.
Maybe she's just trying to decolonialise herself.
You what?
Wait, well, think about it. Mum grew up in a time when Cyprus was colonised. That's it, colonised by the English, right? And there was like the added complication of multiple indigenous folks on the island. You know, like the Turkish Cypriots, Greek Cypriots, and other Maronites and other Cypriots, yeah?
Yeah.
So, like, the troubles began when Mum was in her late teens. So her memories of that time, she remembers them as a threat to her safety, innit? Her family, her sense of being Turkish, her religion. So first the English presence changed the way that people saw things, yeah? So, you know the English had colonised, so there was like a definite English presence from according to what Mum was saying. But that wasn't so bad because they weren't a threat to her so much, yeah? Her cultural way of life.
Then colonising Cyprus is the reason Mum came to Britain, right? She was given opportunities that others weren't given.
Yeah, it's true, but Mum doesn't see it like that, does she? I mean, she says Britain owes her and many other Cypriots a place in its society because they came and ruined things for her and her generation with the fighting and all that in Cyprus.
Yeah, but wasn't that because the Greeks wanted to make Greece the motherland? What do they call it?
Enosis. Union with Greece. Yeah, but the Enosis movement started against the English presence on the island first. The fact that the Turks were against it then put them in the firing line as well. I'm not even going to start on the Cyprus problem, yeah? It's too long and complicated and there are so many sides to it, it defines reason, yeah?
I don't understand. What's your point then?
Okay, the point I'm trying to make is Mum and her generation of people who left the island left during a time when it was still a British colony.
So, no one asked her to leave?
Yeah, but she felt she had to. There were no prospects for her during those times, yeah? Her education got cut short, she lived in a conflicting zone, they were all in enclaves, there was nowhere else to go but Britain. But she took with her that trauma of being colonised and having her identity threatened by an opposing force.
What, AOPA?
Yeah, the Greek Cypriot nationalistic organisation. You know what, I'm not so sure about the term organisation, but that's not the point here. As a way of preserving her sense of cultural self, Mum internally and externally ghettoised herself in East London.
How? She integrated?
Yeah, but not until after the millennium, when the rag trade died and communication technology became a thing, innit? And even then, she'd only watched Turkish satellite TV. Don't you remember? She always maintained that she didn't consider this place as her home.
But that's what I don't get. She worked here, she retired here, her kids are here. How can this not be home?
Maybe Mum's notion of home is different to ours. Maybe her notion of home has a really strong cultural and national ties rather than relational ones.
I don't believe that. If it wasn't for us, she would have left a long time ago.
True, but not to Cyprus.
Yeah, explain that to me. Why Turkey?
Listen, sis, I struggle with understanding being Turkish Cypriot, and I'm educated in like cultural studies, identity theory, race theory, and all of that. Yeah, Mum lives her experiences and her emotions, not through logic and education stuff. She lives it. So many of Mum's generation of diaspora are like that. They create this nostalgic idea of homeland, expecting the homeland to be exactly how they left it. But time moves on, and so does Cyprus, or Bangladesh, or Somalia, and all these other post-colonial countries, yeah?
Yeah, but Cyprus isn't the conflicted country Mum left it as. So again, why Turkey?
I don't know, I can't speak for Mum, but my understanding of it, like, the way I interpret it is that Turkey still maintains Mum's notion of Turkish identity without the colonial and conflicting past. And also in Mum's case, I think she can practice her religion more comfortably in Turkey than in Cyprus.
There are practicing Muslims in Cyprus, you know.
Yeah, but don't forget, there are the other layers of post-colonial, post-conflict trauma that Mum and her generation have to unpack and deal with. Some return to Cyprus and adapt. Some never return and decide to adapt in their host country. Whilst others, like Mum, choose an alternative, I don't know, an alternative utopian place, the ideal place.
Okay, so what do you mean by, what did you call it, decolonising herself? Is that even a word?
Probably not, but I'm a doctor, so I can coin terms. Okay, it works for me.
Fair enough.
What I mean by decolonialising is that it's the opposite of colonialism. So whereas through the act of colonialism, the colonised people's sense of self, their self-knowledge, cultural and environmental knowledge, their autonomy, and even in some cases their languages and means of communicating are ruptured. Yeah, it's torn by the colonised, by the colonials. Yeah. Decolonialism, colonialism even, is about dealing with the trauma of that rupture and trying to put back the pieces of your identity however way you can.
What, by upping and leaving all you know in your family so you can feel Turkish again?
Yeah, but maybe that's Mum's way of becoming, isn't it? Maybe that's how Mum wants to live and identify herself. And maybe Turkey's the place she wants to inhabit to do that.
Yeah, but you can't impose a decolonising or whatever you want to call it on me. I'm not experiencing trauma. I know who I am.
Then you're one of the lucky ones. Many second-generation diasporas struggle with their identities because of their family's connection to a homeland or another culture, very different to the host culture. Even people who live in their homeland and are post-colonial nations, they're struggling with decolonising trauma.
So basically, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
Yeah, but everything has its advantages and disadvantages, yeah? In the case of Cyprus, I think it's still suffering because it's gone from a colonial past to a divided present. So people are still living with national, religious and cultural crisis because of the conflicts and division that's still ongoing. I don't blame Mum for not wanting to go back there, but she wanted to go back somewhere to reclaim her notion of an ideal self.
Well, that's too much psychology for me, and if it works for her, good luck, but I'm not budging.
Sound like Thatcher.
I was born in Leeds, but my parents were from the country now known as Bangladesh. They were actually born East Pakistanis, as Bangladesh was part of Pakistan then. I think I could perhaps guess roughly when my father was born. He died early, age 47, in 1981, from a heart attack. So he would have been born around 1944. He arrived in the UK sometime in the 60s to a Labour government overseen by Harold Wilson. And Wilson was a great reformer, known for modernising and turning policy on its head in areas as diverse as education, health, housing and gender equality. In addition to these changes, he introduced work vouchers for migrants coming to the UK to live and work. My father was one of those in receipt of a work voucher. He came to the UK in the 1960s and worked as a box cutter in a factory. My mother joined him sometime near the turn of that decade. I'm not certain how they lived, my mum and dad, but I heard many stories of how close-knit their generation was. They lived in a back-to-back, and often there'd be 9 people sleeping to a room, friends of the family. I was born in October of 1970. 6 months later, a new country, the nation-state of Bangladesh, was born, freed from the yoke of Pakistan. Now, I can't say growing up in the 1970s in Leeds that it was free of racism or prejudice. There was plenty to fear for us children on the streets. We lived in fear of the big children all the time. There was often the shadow of anxiety. Once I remember going back home from the halal butchers carrying a bag of meat. At the top of the road, just as we were nearing home, an Alsatian was launched at me like a rocket. "Run! It can smell the meat," my brother cried. The group of marauding kids were shouting, "Kill!" and pointing to us. To this day, I have dreams of stray dogs, wooffling giant monsters rising up in the deserted streets of Beeston. my part of Leeds. But these were isolated incidents. Great long stretches of time would pass where nothing at all would happen. We would go to school, have tea, watch a bit of television, go to bed. As a family, we were not subject to constant racist bullying. There were no attacks on our house, no fireworks put through our letterbox, no smearing of graffiti or other rubbish. Any bullying was not, in other words, systematic. The fear of the outside world was always there, though. Now, I'm an adult, a man, and things are better. Or are they? A conversation I had about 2 years ago, innocent, innocuous, on a trivial matter of etiquette. A friend called to seek my advice. That's him, by the way. I'm sure he wouldn't mind his photograph being up there. He called to seek my advice. He was in a pickle over something, a small matter, one of these things that litter our lives and make them exciting. His family was friends with another family that happened to be Indian. He wanted to say thank you for a favour they had done and buy them some samosas from his favourite deli. The question he wanted to ask was whether whether a gift of samosas to an Indian family might be perceived by them as having patronising or even racist undertones. Now, initially the question caused a jarring sensation in me. I felt I was being picked out because I was Asian, as if I would know the right thing to do. I've never considered the colour of my skin in my dealings with people, and I've always expected the same from others. Was my friend, in thinking of me as a separate, different entity, somehow subtly racist? I was taken aback and confused about how to reply. There was a sense of someone not knowing the specifics of my identity, of being lumped into a group. Was it right that my friend even put me in this situation, small, minor, inconsequential as it was? Wasn't it putting up barriers and sowing division? He hadn't wanted to be rude to his Indian friend, but wasn't he passing on that rudeness to me? However, what I see now is that my friend and his wife were agonizing over a problem that was very real for them. For me, it didn't exist, but not because I was Asian, like the Indian family. We both had the same skin color, same background, the way of perceiving. But I was being slow to understand his difficulty. From his point of view, a white middle-class man, a man about town, my friend, and a family man, a priest in the Anglican Church. It was a real problem that required some kind of deft response. I should have said to him, just give the family the samosas, and perhaps add a note to say thank you. Make a joke that the Indian family probably ate samosas all the time, but that these samosas were different. In the end, I fudged it. I told my friend and his wife to just do what they felt was right. Now, I think the matter says something about being human. Bias is insidious, so embedded that it must be difficult to see where the bias lies. Error comes from not seeing or perceiving, not having empathy. I suppose you could say empathy requires the ability to stand outside yourself, to feel what others feel, see how others might experience and process what goes on. Ultimately, this is an impossibility, or maybe it's a paradox, so we're always in the wrong. So was I the biased one for feeling put under pressure by my friend? Perhaps we each have our biases. A year later, it was Diwali, the festival of lights. I went to Leicester to visit the same friend, the priest. Leicester is a city which has a large Indian community. As we were walking down the Golden Mile, looking for a curry house, my friend pointed out a restaurant sign, and I wondered aloud whether they served kebabs there. My friend found this terribly funny. He says, they're all Indian, they're only going to serve vegetarian food, he said, smugly and a little snidely, it seemed to me. He also translated the name of the restaurant, which I was unable to do, underlining his superior knowledge of Indian culture. People like to feel they know something of other cultures, that they have some insight, that they can partake in their ceremonies as an insider, or at least as a knowledgeable spectator, that they've been accepted and are not being taken for a poltroon or a buffoon for trying. At the time, I felt under pressure, as if he was proving his greater knowledge, more Indian than me, perhaps. but I see now it was just his liking of Indian culture. So thinking about it and applying some empathy, discerning different perspectives, it's possible to get out of the hole that ego and its illusory nature puts us into, which otherwise leads us to frustration and anger. I wasn't angry with my friend, by the way, just mildly perhaps, or mildly put out, describes it better. We share a universal humanity. Small differences between people, skin colour, the food we eat, family and social structure, these elicit curiosity. It's how we react that shows our ability to empathise, the breadth of our sympathies, whether broad or narrow. Encountering other people, other tribes, might mean that a person withdraws, reacts with dislike or distaste or fear. The root might be said to be fear or a lack of experience. Paranoia even, when a person decides that something just isn't quite right and maybe, who knows, takes a gun to shoot up a school. Its opposite might be said to be openness to the future, a nonchalant disregard for the operations of time and entropy. Openness on the principle of whatever will be, will be. There is room for curiosity and conversation. On the other hand, an oppressed minority can perhaps feel oppression too much, and there are ways to break out of that sense of the burden of your identity, if we truly follow the path of freedom, which means freedom from the slavery of the ego. I am from a minority group living in the UK. The feeling of oppression, where negative thoughts abound and cause a people to not succeed and to be held back, can cause people to retreat and look for answers within their own group, to carry on in the drifts and currents of their own race. Change and difference is the answer. It is the light that keeps us learning, the path to renewal. People can reach out from whatever group they belong and understand that we are not all some undertow of bodies whose call is not heard. Even then, we can end up being stung. History, through the vast swell of the underdog, the destitute, the indentured, the classless, the undocumented, has shown that race and class are such vast and weighty topics. It will move an angel to feel pity. Solutions do not come easily, if they come at all. All we can do is work along and find temporary answers as we go, sticking plasters to the blight in the blood. There is no panacea, but there are reasons to feel hope.
A silver mist settles on London city. The golden dawn shines through the building's glass. Signal waves are circling the tower of BT. The workers awake. They're ready to take a stance. Hark poles, checks, Ukrainians and Latvians, let's take the best fate can offer us. While bankers count Bitcoin profit, builders are in the gut of the underground. Sacrificing health, crippling spirit, what of it? They're building offices and tower blocks, but for what? Is it for common good or for a meagre pound? Or to give hope to the future people of this land? Hark, Poles, Czechs, Ukrainians and Latvians, let's take the best fate can offer us. It's time for reflection, let's make the connection. The signal is getting stronger. WhatsApp and Facebook ring off the hook. The workers from Poland and Czech get restless. They give the Ukrainians a look. And when the clock strikes the hour, they will leave their scaffolded cell. Each will leave his hard hat behind, like a single pistachio shell. Hark, Poles, Czechs, Ukrainians and Latvians, let's take the best fate can offer us. Sink or swim, we ought to take a stand. Workers scream from the top of their lungs. But the city turns screaming to silence. Silver mist comes all temper and violence. How should we take a stand? A pregnant pause ensues. iPhone whispers, you've nothing to lose. Hark, the new 5G broadband is out. Over times good with hands, lips of silver silk. He's got his values close to hard working ilk. His mother's pride and joy, he showers her with cash and gifts. Could be better, could be worse, there could be refugees. Man over times good with hands, lips of silver silk. He's got his values close to hard working ilk. His mother's pride and joy, he showers her with cash and gifts. Could be better, could be worse, there could be refugees. Bogdan Pygmalionovich, a man of our times. He arrived from the land of his proud ancestors in pursuit of his dreams, but also to preserve his family's name. And what a name it is! The first Pygmalionovich appeared in ancient scriptures as a man of high moral standing, pious and hard-working, a skilled sculptor, good with hands, who carved a statue of a perfect woman out of a block of ivory. He fell in love with the statue, so much so that he brought her to life with a passionate kiss. Shame they no longer make men like this. Man over times, good with hands, lips of silver silk. He's got his values close to hard working ilk. His mother's pride and joy, he showers her with cash and gifts. Could be better, could be worse, there could be refugees. Bogdan, that means God's gift. It's a great responsibility to bring a new human into this pit called life. So Bogdan's mother, being 10 days overdue, was grateful for the extra time to pick a name that would bring the least amount of shame and the maximum potential for success. She prayed for good fortune to descend upon Bogdan, money, health, a sweet little wife, and children running around the house, and inside a small corner for her, for when she's old and lost her mind. Really, not much. Man over times, good with hands, lips of silver silk. He's got his values close to hard working ilk. His mother's pride and joy, he showers her with cash and gifts. Could be better, could be worse, there could be refugees. Bogdan's father worked all day and all night. He was the construction manager's right hand. He did everything boss needed done. Still, too busy to plan a holiday for his son. But don't cry, Bogdan. Be a man. One day you'll be just like your father, who worked his fingers to the bone to build a dream home for his family. But it all ended tragically. Old Pig Maljonovic suffered a great fall from the top of a shopping mall, a victim of a health and safety fail. Gonzo, would you hit the church bell? It was a gloriously sunny day when the mall opened its glassy gates. The ribbon was cut by the mayor, the priest blessed the premises, and many people were there. And amidst the crowds, watching the spectacle from afar, with a tear in his eye and an empty glare, stood Bogdan, his father's son and heir. Another day spent on the site. Sweat is dripping down my chest. Bad, my hands are sticky from the dust blowing through the plastic sheets. My lungs are fine since I gave up smoking last week. I gave up talking to my cousins. They don't know what life's like here. We hook up at Christmas over a Tisky beer or for a wedding, and then I'm gone again. Back to the dust and the drilling tone. I wish I could go on holidays alone to Spain. Away from the heat of arguments over the millimeters of planning adjustments with the guys in white shirts, straight backs and ostentatiously pleasant body smells. Like, I don't mind if they're gay as well. What a sight. The biggest one in the city. Behind the plastic curtains, I see the endless horizon. Financial headquarters stuck in the ground like fingers pointing downwards. The river looks much more tropical than on the day of my survival. Fucking climate change. I must ensure my genes' survival. Life is but a resilience test. Work hard, climb to the top, be the best. Unlike the boys I left behind, sad, unrecognized and stuck, watching the dreams they all once had infinitely differ from next year to year after that. Bogdan! Cut the crap! Shit. Was I talking to myself out loud? And I see someone standing at the bottom of my ladder to prosperity. And he's the main guy, the CEO, with a strange facial serenity. The site manager, Josh McNormal, is lingering behind him, looking quite formal, in his hand, a golden scroll. They asked me to come down the ladder, slow. Their insurance won't cover another fall. And when I reach the floor, the CEO showers me with compliments. Yeah. He says he's been watching me for a while. He praises the job I done on the ceilings, my meticulous style, and now his face is really close to mine. Bogdan, you have been working exceptionally hard. It's time for you to be rewarded. The Home Secretary is inviting you around. Blah, blah, great opportunity, blah, blah, lagers all night, blah, blah, diversity card. He says, Bogdan, you are our God's gift. Go and make our company proud. The site manager, Josh McNormal, is looking livid. This act is hard to follow. His rejection is hard to swallow, but he'll have to live with it. Because I'm going to the Builders Ball, and it's a +1 and all. Sometimes I feel like the world is not made for me. Like I try to walk in a straight line after having too much to drink through an eye of a cyclone. Am I more than just my physical strength and my CS qualification? You know, I sometimes wonder, am I even human? The working day is over, from the height I descend like a king. Trading my high vis for a low-life cheek. Transition at the gates, Clark Kent, it's quick. Underneath the protective attire, my tired body is on fire, it's hot. But Club Tropicana on the upper deck, it ain't. My balls sweat. The train home is fast, but not fast enough. I take a swig of the energy drink from good luck. And when I lift my gaze from the screen, I'm in an HD reality streaming. I'm in a carriage full of women. I hover my finger over the selection bar. Stuffy air and a carriage here, but girls, I'm saving up for a car. Porsche Panamera is what I want. Freedom, technology, and style. Also a complete exchange of energies, a sense of purpose by the side of a woman, not necessarily an Instagram model, although I'm not too picky. I crave being in the presence of someone who will see into my soul as I see into hers, who will accept me for who I am, with whom I'll be a better man, and I won't regret when in the final hour I'm lying on the shore like a fish out of water, gasping for air when the earth turns into a landing platform for the alien civilization. I hope they do a better job and love more. God, it's hot in here. I wipe the hair from my forehead. My mom used to do that for me when I passed the finishing line on sports day lovingly. And suddenly, I hear a voice of this pigeon train. Excuse me, can you move away? Because stand a little further away. Can't you see I'm here with my children? Look at this disrespectful man. Could you just not exhale your asbestos breath? Oh, this is a genocide of manners, an apocalypse of compassion and care. You come into this country for free, and that's hardly fair. Oh, and what you wear is inappropriate for this time of year. Babe, I can't be racist because you're pale. And out of decency, for the innocence, you should just walk home like a grown male. At least the stink of your lewd pheromones would be absorbed by the air. Honestly, you look like a DIY nightmare. Oi, yes, I'm talking to you, sir. But I look away and I wipe wet hair from my forehead. My mom used to do that for me. If she wasn't so fucking mental, I would miss her, honestly. But I'm back on a train. I see a blonde, a brunette, and a curly tease fixing up their makeup. Their eyes dart hungrily. They won't even look at me. I wonder why that is. I might be the unnecessary scenery. But how do you know that you're real?
That we've met. I was reminiscing about us the other day, fish fingers, beans, bread? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And, you know, when you picked up the knife and fork, I was gobsmacked. And I said to you, don't you eat with your hands?
Honestly, of course I remember. I was well offended. I felt bloody cheek. And I remember saying, no, we'll get in trouble for that. We have to use knife and fork.
Yeah, I remember. And I tried to justify my curiosity by telling you that I had a friend called Tony who ate with his hands. Yeah? And I remember my dad saying to me, he didn't want me to pick up any white people nastiness, you know, like eating with their hands. God help us.
And I remember saying, adults say funny things.
Yeah, and I remember me saying, and they think they know everything.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, we're adults now. Do you think you know everything?
Of course I do.
Yeah, me too. I know everything. Oh, wow. So, your opinions?
On mine?
Have they changed?
Not really, no. Adults still feel like they know everything.
They do, yeah.
Trace, do you know what? Do you know that according to the laws of nature, our world has become extremely artificial?
What do you mean?
I mean, we're no longer governed by nature. We oppose it. Even wrong it.
I think I know what you mean. You mean like we're making right wrong and wrong right?
Yeah, exactly. Take herbal remedies, for example. Many are known to heal, right? And yet they're being scoffed at, even though they cure. Flipping making right wrong.
Yeah. And I'll tell you another example of making right wrong is the way we respond and react to mental health. I mean, isn't it natural to go loopy or mad when you think about some of the world dramas that are going on? You know, like land is being purchased to grow flowers instead of food, whilst people go hungry. God help us. Yeah. It's a bit surreal, you know, the world that we're living in.
It is. Take social media, for example. I mean, I totally get it. Everything in moderation, right? But the thing is, it hasn't been used by most in moderation. And basic human content has been radically reduced. So much so that when we're together, in person, we're flipping social media in on our phones.
Oh my God, that is so true. You know what? I was at a party last Saturday, and 50% of the people were on their phone, social mediaing. And the other 50% were watching videos.
Stop it.
God
This
help
is
us. Yeah. It's strange, very strange.
It is a strange world.
It's very strange, isn't it? It is. Wow.
You know what?
No, what?
Can I show you something?
Now, can I show you something?
What is it?
It's a clip on YouTube.
Are you serious with me right now?
I was only joking.
Oh, Trace, you always been a joke
wow. You know what? You go.
The best thing about you is that you never changed. So nice.
Well, you know what? You haven't changed much either. It was so nice seeing you.
You too. Well, now, take care of yourself. Okay?
In recent days, the Home Secretary has clearly stated that his priority in the safety and security of Britain and people who live here in order to protect the country. He has the power to deprive someone of their British citizenship, where it would not render them stateless. We do not comment on individual cases, but any decisions to deprive individuals of their citizenship are based on all available evidence and not taken lightly. Who belongs here? Look at these Muslim girls sitting alone. You should be British. Show some life, sugar.
Excuse me? Are you alright, sister? What's going on here? Look, mate, I don't know who you think you are, or what you're on, but you need to mind your own business.
Look, I was just giving the poor girl a bit of advice. Look, she sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah? And so does your nose, but we don't say anything.
Oh, yeah, you're getting a little bit too big for your boots, yeah? Do you know what? You're a bunch of bloody troublemakers.
Nah, you're all right, sis. I just wanted to make sure that you were safe. You see, all I'm trying to say is that similar to, like British convicts and criminals that are entitled to resettlement to amend their wrongs, Shmuel Begum deserves something similar. I mean, her birthright should remain intact, right?
Just in Muslim students preaching anti-government, hating classrooms. British soil! Extremist!
Bloody terrorist.
Bloody terrorist!
Terrorist.
Bloody terrorist! Bloody terrorist! Bloody terrorist! Bloody terrorist!
Sister, have you washed yourself before entering? You know you need to do wudu, to washing, before prayer. Thank you for taking your shoes off. Come, let me sit you at the back to watch.
Excuse me? I was born Muslim.
Oh. Well, don't you know that you need to cover your ears and your hair and your wig and your weave and...
It's my natural hair.
It is necessary to highlight the changes made to understand the extent of the insecurities felt by the British-born people of colour in regards to fitting in to look more like us, despite the absence of a set criteria on how a coloured culture or religious person should change their values and image. It feels like an unspoken word that we simply need to look and act white or English.
There has been some media coverage on the recent controversy over whether there is such a thing as Hinduphobia, similar to anti-Semitism and Islamophobia experienced by Jews and Muslims respectively. A definition says of Hinduphobia that it is a set of antagonistic, destructive and derogatory attitudes towards Hindus that may manifest as prejudice, fear or hatred, developed by Hindu students group in the US. The recent controversy started in early 2021 when Rashmi Samant, the first Indian woman to be elected president over Oxford Student Union, was forced to resign amid controversy over some past social media posts. An Oxford academic by the name of Dr. Abhijit Sarkar spearheaded the campaign against her by using some of her past social media posts to discredit her, which led to an organised campaign against her by several student groups who demanded an apology from her. In response, an article appeared on an online media platform asking questions: does Hinduphobia exist in the UK? Time to get British Indian view, it quotes Rashmi as saying, for as long as it takes, anti-Hindu bigotry will be opposed and countered with grace and dignity. Earlier on, I interviewed Dr. Muhammad Ahmadullah, and I asked him, he wrote, just because some right-wing Hindus may use the term Hinduphobia in an attempt to silence their critics, most of whom are from Hindu background, does it mean then that there is such a thing as there is no such thing as Hinduphobia in real life? Can you kindly explain your reasoning clearly?
Well, All sides in political conflicts, competition, generalize to define, judge and generate propaganda against each other. But real life is complex, that consists of experiences of millions of people, interpretations of experiences and responses to experiences. Interpreting experiences and responses to them depends on belief systems and theories that provide people the tools to understand experiences, make moral judgments and respond to situations. Theories and belief systems change, either gradually or get replaced by something very different. As such, how people understand and evaluate their experiences also change with the replacement of theories and belief systems. This means that people's experiences and how they evaluate them are very diverse and ever-changing. To answer your question, just because some Hindu nationalists are trying to use the term Hinduphobia or anti-Hindu hate to silence their critics or rivals, it does not mean that Hinduphobia is not experienced by ordinary Hindus. The important point to know and understand is that many Hindus may be interpreting their experiences of prejudice as Hinduphobia now, which they didn't in the past, because of the recent political influences of Hindu nationalism there. But that does not mean that Hindus did not and do not experience
Dula, you're frozen.
What's the next question?
Okay, so I'll go on to the next question. What would you tell the critics of Hindu nationalists to do when they are engaged in political battles with your wife then?
What I would say is that rather than deny the existence of Hinduphobia, which would be wrong and also counterproductive, because this term seems to resonate with many Hindus currently, it would be more appropriate to come up with alternative theories to explain and evaluate the prejudice and discrimination that many ordinary Hindu people experience and face. Their experience of prejudice and discrimination, which many of them feel are real, cannot be false in all cases. Therefore, explaining them and what to do with them should be the focus of debate by those who oppose the Hindu nationalists.
Thank you.
There are huge implications.
What are the implications that may result from applying the term Hinduphobia to describe the actions of individuals like Dr. Abhijit Sarkar by right-wing Hindu nationalists? This relates to the claim made against Dr. Abhijit Sarkar that his action in social media against Rashmi Samant constituted Hinduphobia and Hindu bigotry, anti-Hindu bigotry.
What I would say is that rather than deny the existence of Hinduphobia, which would be wrong and also counterproductive, because this term seems to resonate with many Hindus currently, it would be more appropriate to come up with alternative theories to explain and evaluate the prejudice and discrimination that many ordinary Hindu people experience and face. Their experience of prejudice and discrimination, which many of them feel are real, cannot be false in all cases. Therefore, explaining them and what to do with them should be the focus of debate by those who oppose the Hindu nationalists. There are huge implications. What I would say is that rather than deny the existence of Hinduphobia, which would be wrong and also counterproductive, there are huge implications in accusing individuals like Dr. Abhijit Sarkar as engaging in Hinduphobia, especially as he's from a Hindu background. Of course, someone from a religious background can leave a faith and turn against it and its follower, which is often the case. But in general, accusations such as that against Dr. Abhijit Sarkar cannot be easily resolved and proven through logical analysis or investigation of facts. One of the main reasons for this is that because Hinduism is the product of thousands of years of traditions, development, and inputs made by many people over the years, and the scope that Hindu societies have allowed for diversity throughout its history. Hindu nationalism and Hindu secularism are both political products of Western influences, and they are modern phenomena. As such, each group will be able to use Hindu history and Hindu teachings selectively and from a partial understanding to argue their case, although not totally satisfactorily in terms of logical consistency and the objective and balanced use of evidence. When any group tries to resolve unsolvable issues through the selective use of information, political movements and slogans, it ends up nowhere, unless one has the power to impose its will by force. The only way to prove that Dr. Abhijit Sarkar was a Hinduphobe would be by using tautological arguments based on the premises of the Hindu nationalist worldview. As such, if ordinary people were to see Dr. Abhijit Sarkar through the lenses of the Hindu nationalist, they would become convinced that he was a Hinduphobe, because the premises utilized would lead to such a conclusion. However, if it were the opposite case, the Hindu secularist premises would lead to a very different conclusion, which is that Dr. Abhijit Sarkar was not a Hinduphobe. Ordinary people are...
How do developments such as that with Russian savants at Oxford and the controversies generated impact on diverse local communities, local communities that live side by side in terms of community tension and cohesion? How do you then think bigger debates and battles filter down to communities at neighbourhood levels and their impact on social empathy, community cohesion and togetherness?
There are huge implications. Ordinary people are very busy with their lives and they do not have enough time to examine things deeply. People view and experience the world through the lenses of theory that provide them with explanations, moral positions, and how to respond to situations. As such, people living in diverse societies are often influenced by a range of different theories and explanations that often set one against the other. We all know how prejudices can be hurtful and damaging to individuals and also to community cohesion. But they cannot be eliminated, as prejudice seems to be a fundamental part of being human. Not having prejudice means having perfect knowledge of everything, which is an impossibility. Human beings have to survive and engage with the world through knowledge and understanding, which will always be partial. So their judgment must always be prejudicial. Well, philosophy can help more people understand.
Okay, my third and final question would be, so where does philosophy come in to help and deal with the fact that imperfect, a partial and tentative knowledge is inevitable and therefore prejudice is unavoidable and unnecessary?
Well, philosophy can help more people understand the human knowledge process, the nature of knowledge, the fallibility of what we can and do know, and how we can go about generating and utilizing objective, rational knowledge to improve our world. Philosophy at local level can help provide frameworks, reference points, guidelines, and practical methods where people from different backgrounds can peacefully challenge each other's prejudices, whether large or small, whether the implications are dangerous or benign.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to Dr. Mohammed examining Hinduphobia in the UK. Thank you very much.
What race are you? How would you describe your ethnicity? Being asked these questions can make some people nervous, some people proud, some people indifferent. Often the reaction to this question depends on the ethnicity of the person being asked and the person asking the question. I want to look at the question, is there a difference between non-white and white stand-up comedians, feeling pressure to address their ethnicity when on stage. Have experienced many comedy clubs. I've asked many comedians this question. Many comedians feel that they should talk about what they know, use personal experience and connect with the audience, which often means they will address things that might be important to themselves, such as ethnicity. Ethnicity can be controversial and difficult to define. According to Fort, Tretcher and Butchell, scholars across all disciplines agree that the concept of ethnicity is a socially constructed category. Mostly when answering the question, what ethnicity are you? A person can answer whether whatever they personally believe is their ethnicity, it's a personal opinion. For the purposes of this study, participants have self-identified their own ethnicity. I surveyed 65 comedians through an online surveying tool asking 4 questions. The first 2 questions were, how would you describe your ethnicity, and do you feel you must address your ethnicity in your comedy? I broke the results down into 3 groups, white British, white Irish and non-white. Obviously non-white comedians cover a huge range of diverse group of wonderful people, but then I grouped them together. The results indicate a different lived experience from 3 different groups. Okay, next slide. So, 12.5% of white British comedians felt they did not have to address their ethnicity, and 87.5% felt they did not. Meaning the vast majority of white comedians completed their shows not feeling the need to address their ethnicity. For the group self-labelling white Irish, 25% felt they should address their ethnicity, with 75% suggesting they did not need to address it. So evening ethnicities that are closely related, for example Irish and British, have different results, with Irish comedians feeling a significantly larger need to address their ethnicity than white British comedians. However, still the majority of white Irish comedians, 75%, felt they did not need to address their ethnicity. For those identifying as non-white comedians, which is my group of all comedians who did not identify as either white British or white Irish, the figures are 42% who did feel the need to address their ethnicity and 58% who felt they did not. So now we still have a majority who feel they do not need to, which could be a positive, meaning that non-white comedians feel some freedom to talk about other things that interest them, not only their race. However, it is clear that non-white comedians feel far more pressure to talk about their race than either of the first 2 groups. This study did not delve deeply into why people felt they either had to or did not have to address their ethnicity in their standard routines. We now think maybe why people might have done this. Brian Logan, writing in The Guardian, says, being in a minority can give you plenty to say and urge to say it at a particular angle from which to do so. Then there are the fact that in a crowded marketplace, stand-ups zero in on the USP, which makes them stand out from the perceived norm. So it could be that stand-up is a dialogue between the stand-up and the audience. Comedians might want to address their race as they feel it's important when comparing themselves to other comedians on the circuit. A traditional stand-up audience are often white and middle class, predominantly, and this might make non-white comedians feel they must address this difference. The results from this study suggest white comedians would do this also, because when asked, would you be more likely to comment on your ethnicity if the majority of the audience was of a different ethnicity, 45% said yes, of the white comedians, and 55% said no. Which meant that half of all of the white comedians would consider addressing ethnicity in their set with an audience of a different ethnicity, even though only 90% regularly mention race in their set. The difference that white comedians feel here is what many non-white comedians might feel every time they go on stage. Non-white comedians might have experienced this more working in the UK with a traditional white middle-class audience. 56% of non-white comedians address race in their, regularly address race in their sets, compared to 90% of white comedians. However, interestingly, 75% of non-white comedians would be more likely to comment on their ethnicity if the majority of the audience was of a different ethnicity. This reflects the different lived experiences of white and non-white comedians in the comedy scene. It could be that addressing race can be part of the connection with the audience. Intimacy is both physically and emotionally to be made use of at various points. The audience members' potential tension, feeling of solidarity and willingness to connect to the other people around them, as well as their willingness to connect to the performer, could be important according to Tori Giuseppe. Meaning addressing some differences between the performer and the audience, such as race, could help the comedian connect with their audience and improve the performance. So how does this link to philosophy? There are 3 main philosophical theories about comedy. Next slide. First of all, superiority theory, where we use jokes to dominate others. Thomas Hobbes argued that a joke is a sign of sudden glory. He said, when I detect someone else's weakness, I make it obvious to others so they are distracted and do not see my own failures. So modern comedy tends to avoid punching down. That this still exists is highlighted by the uproar recently over comedians such as Andrew Lawrence and Jimmy Carr's racist jokes. In the 60s and 70s and 80s, often minority comedians would punch down at themselves. For example, in his book, Who Am I Again?, Lenny Henry states that for a black performer to survive in the world of the 1970s light entertainment, it was best to get all the dodgy jokes in before the audience did. Next slide, thanks. So, relief theory. So this is the jokes that are balm for our wounds. So Freud, in his Jokes and their relation to the unconscious, notes that humour allows one to rest. In doing jokes, one retreats from the inescapable distress and thoughts of death. It also makes one able to take care of others by making them laugh. It might be that addressing ethnicity releases tension in the room. Talking about race and racism is very much in the modern consciousness, so comedians could play with the tension between an audience with a predominantly different race to the comedian. They could also use humour to deal with some of the difficult and real ethnic tensions in society. Next slide. Incongruity theory. So jokes are language disposition. As Homer in the Iliad or Shakespeare in Hamlet, the joker has the ability to connect words, images and concepts that are inadequate. In doing so, they surprise us. As Aristotle would say in his Rhetoric, humour is then an intellectual virtue shared by writers, rhetoricians and comedians. Ethnicity could also be used to surprise. Stereotypes and presumptions being turned on their head or exposed can often be used for comic effect. For example, Larry Dean's contrast between his lavish demeanour and the fact that he's a homosexual is using his stand-up sets for comic effect. Comedians such as Omid Djalali often play with stereotypes of their race for comic effect, leaning into and then reversing stereotypes. In Omid's case, of Persian-Iranian stereotypes. To conclude then, it is clear that non-white comedians feel pressure to address their ethnicity comedy in their comedy. The reason why this is the case is outside the premises of the study, and whether this is positive or negative needs to be explored. Thank you.
Exploration is in our blood. Extinction is a feared possibility. Exercise your right. Stand up to be counted. Evolution is inescapable and inevitable. Simplicity made complicated, society forever craves for more. Striving for something far better, seemingly surprising expectations. Charting the map, vital destination, changing perception, a new religion, cavaliers and the crusaders, expeditions to invade, challenges are set, new demands made, crimes left unpunished, perpetrators and victims created.
Across the continents they sail for spices, artifacts, precious stones and textiles. Accomplished outcomes, no. A new commodity traded. Another journey, like sardines, cramped and abused, just inhumane. Countless lives faded. Across the many oceans, only rulers and colonizers capitalize. Afflictions ignored, new battle scars forever reverberate.
Peoples displaced, new territories colonized, plantations harvest, indigenous co organized. Prophets saw another deal, many took to the land of plenty. Piteously pious poison pinned on false hopes. Prolonged exploitation, wars lost and won, many had on a journey. Privileges gained on new shores, only to face tougher foes.
Indians, Irish, Africans, Chinese, other minorities. Induced labour, rivers of blood, yet dogs treated more favourably. Icing on the cake, just a pretense to accessorise. Idioms created, the stumbles, falls and cries. Isolation, solitude, all suffering in silence. Invariably, history repeating itself, ignorance swelling comfortably.
N-word and P-word exalted, severed places, narcissistic behavior, racism and supremacy rises. Never turn the other cheek, a new generation is born. Now the real race begins. Cultures clash, generations torn, new voices finally heard. Those cries no longer silenced.
Gruesome killings, many escape conviction. Gracious force exonerated. Only the privileged pleas, grapevine news rippling through streets, causing much agitation. Gaining momentum, laws repelled only to appease. Giant leap finally made, yet small steps sustained. Giving birth to fascism, fundamentalism and extremism. Gaining grounds on conflicts and wars that rage like bushfires. Gainfully crisis created, not averted. Only divisions made, giving glory a newfound hope, else pity the generations to come.
In the stars it is written, at least that's what they say. Inveritably, inveritable, a truth yet to handle. Innocence taken early, technology winning today. Inauguration of a new order, belief taking second fiddle. Invertedly, the stories untold, reverting to a whole new lie. In the end, we may never really see the clear sky.
Never before have we sought answers to the unknown. Now, though, history cannot seem to be repeated. Numerous unions cling to ancient tales, visions of being undefeated. Nations giving rise to a reverberating groan. Nothing else seems to matter, only survive and hustle. Newborn, rational, breathing life like a newfound pulse. Every calling is ignored because we choose not to hear, earning respect, a rare commodity that can be costly. Early risers catch the worm, or so they say, yet many still linger, esoteric cries carried across the seas. We still fail to catch clearly e-currency, a new digital trade-off, accountability hard to identify. Effortless can become a selfless motivator, yet greed makes hunger greater.
Voices echo consistently, only to fall on vacant ears. Vanity calls, as many fall prey. Political wise as media baits cast wider. Victory sounds gain momentum, though only made of empty roars. Vivid tales spun, spreading quickly to instill fear. Vaccination's the new cure, yet humanity trapped like caged animals.
In and out, the breath continues, but it is all just a new territory. Invitation to self-isolate, desperation still on the radar, imprisoned within comfortable walls, all on the edge of insanity. Ignorance for many may be bliss, measured controls made tougher, initiating new movements many still question, all known of another agenda.
Tracking and monitoring created the calm before the storm. Technology playing a major role, friends and families united, taking small steps, though not quite a giant leap for mankind. Tenacious tactics stepped up like a whole new swarm. Tolerance given a whole new meaning, variance rise and identified. Accession claims made, illusions crack, opening inner doors. Accountability taken lightly, continue to play the blame game. Awakened feelings of so it seems, dreamlike, unable to escape. Accepting the normal as opposed to the older ways. Accelerated worries, locked and hidden, unseen frustrations.
Being present is key, yet we know not how. Breathe, breathe, breathe. But wait, we know not what we inhale now. Brave voices beckon for change, only not to be heard. Broken channels resurface, we can only repeat, repeat, repeat. Be strong and steadfast, Resilience is required.
Lessons yet to be learned, all keen to join the rat race. Again, liberty taken for granted, fear rises, patience peak, leaks found, many frown as politicians pantomime resume, lockdown ignored, straining tension arises, all masked, longevity in question, plans rehashed, is the first narrative.
Everlasting tyranny, even if democracy is the modern cry. Elaborate takes woven to this wonderful tapestry. Economic collapse, bubble bursting, all in denial. Ever-increasing tensions, all becoming just so few. Elevating to higher states of being, or just an illusion.
Conflicts, battles, wars, and ground zero repeated. Scars and wounds run deep, etched timelessly in history. It's a bed of roses with thorns, yet we strive to thrive. Challenges are made, and change is a hard act to follow. Just like giving peace a chance, letting go is not easy.
Crossing boundaries, trying to jump barriers, celebrate those differences. It's about humane unity. Create understanding to dispel the fears. Conditional love can be costly. Let it be unconditional.
All we have known is me, myself, and I.
Our senses numbed, like the blind following the blind.
The least we can try is you,
me,
and us. Arise, arise!
For we are now one.
So now, it is no longer a single cry.
Hope you enjoyed. We were going to have a Q&A, but we don't have the time now. We have to vacate this room. I apologize again for the delay, and hope you enjoyed. This is a nice director. I met him about 30 years ago when I went to see one of his plays in Tom Allen Center, Stratford. That was back in 1995, and it was a really brilliant play. We also worked with Joan, right? And Joan is always encouraging us and supporting us. Would you like to say something and we'll finish?
Yeah, very quickly. Actually, we go back a lot further because he used to live 4 roads away from me when he was much younger. Right? He went to the same primary school that I went to 5 years later. He went to the same secondary school 4 years later that I went to. We never saw each other for about 20 years until we met at that show, and then we've been friends ever since. So it's been a strange old journey for all of us. But really, thank you very much for your patience and time, and hope you enjoyed the show. Sorry we haven't got time for Q&As, but if you do, just drop Mohammed an email at Brick Lane Circle, and hopefully we'll get back to you. So thank you all very much. Bye.